Hi everyone, in today's lesson we're going to talk about graphing rational functions. Here are 7 steps for graphing rational functions. The first step and the 6th step we are not going to do yet, so just follow them, ignoring steps 1 and 6 for now. So the first thing that you want to do is find and plot the y-intercept. So let's look at this equation here. How do I find a y-intercept? Well, a y-intercept occurs when x is equal to 0. So we have f of x, which is this, so that's y. So y equals 3 over 0 minus 2. So y equals 3 over negative 2. And as a point, that's 0, negative 1.5, if we would like to use a decimal. That's the y-intercept. So we're going to plot that. So 0, negative 1.5 is somewhere about there. Now it says to find and plot the x-intercept. So an x-intercept occurs when y is 0, or in other words, when f of x is 0. So 0 equals 3 over x minus 2. Cross multiply, 0 times x minus 2 is 0. 0 equals 3 doesn't really make any sense, so we reject. That means there are no x-intercepts. Okay. The next thing that we want to do is find and sketch any vertical asymptotes or any horizontal asymptotes. So that's step 4 and 5. So remember, a vertical asymptote is when the denominator is equal to 0. So x minus 2 is the denominator, set it equal to 0, and add 2 on both sides, and x is equal to 2. So we can go ahead now and sketch my value x equaling 2 as my asymptote. And a horizontal asymptote has everything to do with the degree of the numerator and the degree of the denominator. Now, the degree of the denominator is easy. That's 1, so we can go ahead and put a 1 there. But there's no variable next to 3. There actually is, and it's actually x to the 0, because x to the 0 is 1. So the degree of the numerator is less than the degree of the denominator. So in that case, the asymptote is y equals 0. So y equals 0 because the degree of the numerator is less than the degree of the denominator. So we can go ahead and graph the line y equals 0, which is right on top of the x-axis. So this right here. Now the last and final thing is we need to find some additional points. We really only have this one point right here that'll help us. Now it's kind of clear that this graph is going to look something like this following the asymptotes. But where does it look in this area over here? So what we're really going to have to do, I know it says up here, it says plot additional points, one in between the x-intercepts and one beyond, but there are no x-intercepts. So we really just want to see, well, where is this graph going in these parts? So the way that you can find these additional points is by using the calculator. So in the f of x, you're going to put in the original equation, which is 3 over x minus 2. And we're going to look at the table. And I'm just going to write mine sideways, x and y, just so that I have some points and some room for them. So take a minute, pause the video, put this into your y equals. Okay, now after you put it into your y equals, you should have remembered that the denominator gets its own fraction in the y equals. You want to graph some of these points and basically see where it happens. So at x equals 2, it's undefined. So see when x equals 3, what happens. So if you look at your calculator, when x equals 3, y is 3. So let's graph that point. 1, 2, 3, 3, 3. This point right up here. When x is 4, it says y is 1.5. So let's graph that. So go over 4 and then up 1.5. Oops, I think that's right around here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1.5 is about there. And it looks like as you keep going, so like when x is even 10, it's 0.375. So it looks like it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So you could tell that my graph is going to look something like that. And that is your equation. Okay, let's move on to example number 2. Okay, same concept. Let's find all the pieces. So an x-intercept occurs when y is equal to 0. So when y equals 0. So again, f of x is y. So 0 equals 2x minus 1 all over x. Put this over 1 and cross multiply. So 0 times x is 0. And 2x minus 1 times 1 is 2x minus 1. Add the 1 on both sides. We get 1 equals 2x. Divide by 2. X is equal to 1/2. So as a point, it's 0.5 comma 0. So let's go ahead and label that. So 1/2 0 is approximately right there. A y-intercept occurs when x is equal to 0. So y equals 2 times 0 minus 1 over 0. So that becomes y equals -1 over 0. Now this should be a red flag. You can't divide anything by 0, so this is undefined. So that means there is no y-intercept. Okay, so we still only have our x-intercept over here, which is at 0.50. Now again, vertical asymptote is when the denominator equals 0. So when we set x equal to 0, that is my vertical asymptote. So that's this equation right here. So we could say x equals 0. Horizontal asymptotes occur when, well, we look at the degree of the numerator and the degree of the denominator. Since they are equal, because this is a 1 and this is a 1, we take the ratio of the coefficients. So it's 2 over 1, so y equals 2 over 1, which is 2. So the y horizontal asymptote is y equals 2. Ratio of coefficients, because x and x have equal powers. So let's go ahead and label that. Here is the line y equals 2. And this one is probably clear on this right-hand side where it's going to go. So this one's going to go up this way and down this way. But we really have to see where is this going to go, here or here. So again, put this into the calculator, remembering that it's going to be 2x minus 1 in parentheses over x. And let's get some points. So pause the video and then hit resume once you have it in the calculator. Okay, so if you look at your table, you probably want to know, well, where does this thing go when x is -1? So when x is -1, y is 3. And we can keep going. So say when x is, I don't know, -5, you get 2.2. And if you want to keep going maybe to -10, it goes to about 2.1. So -10 and 2.1. So if we graph these 3 points, when x is -1, y is 3. When x is -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're going to go up 2.2. So somewhere around there. And 2.1 when x is 10. So this graph must be going like this. And that's it. That's what your picture should look like. Alright, so why don't you see if you could do example 3 all by yourselves and hit resume when you're finished for the answer. But don't cheat yourself. Try to see if you could do it on your own. Okay, here's what you should have gotten. Alright, so take a minute and write down what I have. Pause the video if you need to. I know that the graph here can be a little bit confusing. I have no problem going over how I got this. So at least just understand the x, the y, the vertical, and the horizontal asymptotes. And I can talk about getting the additional points and graphing this tomorrow if you need help. Alright, jot down any questions that you have, and I'll see you tomorrow.